Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to Post Cologne. Today we're gonna have a fragrance battle between Afnan's 9PM and Lattafa Ramz Silver. So let's jump into it. All right, so it is time for another fragrance battle, and this time we're gonna be covering Afnan's 9PM versus Lattafa Ramz Silver, both Jean Paul Gaultier UltraMale clones, and I do get quite a few questions from you guys about which one of these is better, which one should I buy, which one do I prefer. So today I'm gonna cover all that for you. I'm gonna break down the differences in the scent accords to this, the performance, and just give you an overall sense of which one might be best for you all. And I'll also give you my opinion on which one I prefer at the very end. So stick around and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and let's quit screwing around. Let's get into it. All right, so first things first, we have to talk about the price of these suckers because that is a major factor in your purchasing decision. Afnan's 9PM you can find for about $28, $40 at various discounters, whereas Lattafa Ramz Silver about $17 to $24 at various discounters. I'm gonna have links down in the description to both of these fragrances if you decide you want to check either of these out. Also some coupon codes down there, save yourself a few bucks off of a couple different discounters, so everything will be down in the description if you want to check this one out. But overall, if you find both of these fragrances on a discount site, you are gonna pay a few bucks more for Afnan's 9PM than you are for Lattafa Ramz Silver, but overall, bang for your buck. Both of these pretty good, pretty affordable fragrances. All right, so on to the most important part of this video, and that is, what do these smell like? So both of these fragrances are a clone of Jean Paul Gaultier's UltraMale, but they are slightly different. They have very similar notes to them, but they do kind of go off in their own direction in a couple cases. Both open up with a really nice bergamot and lavender note, so it has that citrus, it has that kind of tart feel to it, and also has that fresh, clean lavender going on with it, very aromatic nature. And they both have a fruity accord that goes into it, but the Lattafa Ramz Silver has that pear that is in Jean Paul Gaultier's UltraMale, whereas 9PM kind of goes off in its own direction and it has this apple note. So that is one of the main differences, is that fruity sweet accord that's in there. I do find the Afnan's 9PM to be a little bit sweeter in that sense. This has more of a sugary, fruity style of sweetness, whereas the pear in this still has that sugary sweetness, but it is a little bit more subdued in comparison to Afnan's 9PM. In the mids, you get a little bit of white floral that comes through, some orange blossom with the 9PM, so it does kind of share the stage a little bit with that sweet accord. So it is that sugary sweet style of apple, but it also has that soft, rich white floral sweetness that comes through. Whereas the Lattafa Ramz Silver, that is pretty much where you're getting that sweet accord in the top, is still from that pear. As these both kind of open up a little bit more, you get a lot more of that vanilla that comes through from the base. So they both have that vanilla amber style of base to it with a little bit of patchouli. I do find the Lattafa Ramz Silver has a little bit more warmth, and it gets this really fuzzy powderiness to it. So this definitely has a lot more texture to it when it's starting to open up, almost pretty much from the opening. It really starts to take on a kind of a dry, fuzzy style of texture to it, whereas the Afnan's 9PM I find to be a lot fresher, a lot smoother. Even the vanilla that comes through in this has a little bit more of a creaminess to it, whereas this one has a little bit more of a dusty texture to it. So they both have that vanilla base to it. The Lattafa Ramz Silver a little bit more musky than the 9PM, but overall it's a very similar style of vanilla, but it's just the texture that comes through and the kind of sweet accords that work its way through. Like I said, apple, sweet floral, still has that aromatic nature to it with more of a creamy style of vanilla, whereas the Lattafa Ramz holds on to that pear note a little bit more, still has that clean lavender, but it takes on more of a dusty style of vanilla with that muskiness into it. So overall, a little bit fresher, a little bit more powdery. Next up, we gotta talk about performance of these two fragrances, because that again is another important factor in your purchasing decision. I am going to caveat this perhaps for the Afnan's 9PM, because I have heard more than one person say that some of the newer bottles may have been reformulated and they don't get quite the same power as some of the older bottles do. Typically, I don't really listen to that when I hear usually a one-off of someone saying that they get, 30 minutes of performance and then it's gone. I usually it could be a skin chemistry thing, but I have heard it from more than a few people that do get newer bottles. So take this with a grain of salt. I've had this bottle now for a year and a half, almost 2 years. So it is from that era. And I get beast mode performance off of this one. This one is an easy 10-hour fragrance off of my skin and very, very loud. This one pushes off really hard for the first 2-3 hours before it does settle back in. And even when it does settle back in, it's still got a really big, thick scent bubble that's going on with this. So in terms of performance, Afnan 9PM, a 2-year-old bottle, I am getting awesome, awesome performance off of this. Lattafa Ramz Silver, this is a new pickup for me. I've had this for a few months now, and so this is a fairly new bottle, and I do get pretty good performance off this. I get about 6 up to 8 hours worth of longevity off this. I do get some on my clothes and I can smell it into the next morning, and it does project fairly good for the first 2 hours or so before it does settle back in. The scent bubble on this one is not as powerful, it's not as big and thick, and you can like feel it radiating as the Afnan 9PM, but again, for a $17 to $24 fragrance, this one does perform fairly well. So again, buyer beware. I'm not sure if the Afnan 9PM's reformulated bottles out there are performing less. It could be kind of a tie between these two at this point. But if you do get a bottle that's performing like mine, this one definitely just blows Lattafa Ramz out of the water when it comes to performance. But overall, I think they're both great performers. All right, so my overall thoughts on Afnan's 9PM versus Lattafa Ramz Silver. If you're looking for something that has a little bit more freshness to it, has a little bit more variety in terms of those sweet scent accords that come through, the apple, that rich white floral that works its way through, and those vanillic accords in the base, this one is the sweeter of the two fragrances, I find. Only slightly, but it is a sweeter, fresher style of the Jean Paul Gaultier's UltraMale, whereas the Lattafa Ramz Silver is a little bit more linear in terms of the sweetness that comes through. It has that pear, it has that vanilla, that muskiness that comes through with this. So you are getting a very similar opening to the dry down style of sweetness, whereas the Afnan's 9PM does kind of change a little bit from that opening all the way to the dry down. So you get a little bit more variety, a little bit of a different ride with 9PM than you do with Lattafa Ramz Silver. But if you're cool with something from the opening to the dry down, there's nothing wrong with that. And you're looking for something that's a little less sweet, still has enough sweetness to it, but is a little bit more subdued, has that pear note, Lattafa Ramz Silver is what you're going to want to go for. Again, if you're looking for something a little bit fresher, you're going to go 9PM. If you like that kind of powdery texture, that little bit of added warmth to a fragrance, then you might want to check out Lattafa Ramz Silver, because it definitely has that kind of fuzzy, powdery, dry sort of feel going on to it in comparison. Both very nice fragrances, both have that sweetness to it, they have that aromatic, clean, late lavender nature that goes on to it, but just slightly different textures and freshness levels between these two. And in terms of price points, these are very similar in price, but you are going to pay a little bit more for the Afnan's 9PM than you are for Lattafa Ramz Silver. And again, going back to performance, like I said, my bottle of Afnan's 9PM is an absolute beast. It just blows Lattafa Ramz out of the water. But even if this has been reformulated and they're sitting in the same neighborhood in terms of longevity and projection, I think they both perform very, very well in that case as well. So overall, both of these great fragrances. Really depends on what you're looking for in terms of scent profile, and again, performance off of these ones. So overall, that's going to be your decision. If you gun to my head, if I had to pick one of these two, I think you already know my answer because it's in my hand. I enjoy Afnan's 9PM better than I do Lattafa Ramz Silver. Not knocking Ramz Silver, because I still wear that one. I still enjoy that one. I just enjoy the freshness of this. I do enjoy that extra added sweetness to it, that little added character to it, and I'm willing to pay about 10 bucks more for the Afnan 9PM for that reason. Even if the performance was the exact same, I would still go with Afnan's 9PM, but the fact of the matter is my bottle is just an absolute beast. So at the end of the day, I do prefer Afnan's 9PM. Both are great fragrances, both bang for your buck. The price is right and definitely worth checking out. So there you have it. That's my opinions of these two fragrances. I hope this was helpful, and that's all I gotta say about that. And I want to hear from you guys. What's another fragrance battle you'd like to see me do? Comment down below. I love hearing from you guys. I love getting your different recommendations, your different requests, all your input. Appreciate you. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you all next time.